Hi, today I started a small project of mine which is to convert Pegasus, and if you know what Pegasus is, I'll post a link here um, to one of my previous videos where I presented what Pegasus is. What it is essentially a clone of Famicom. It's PAL or mostly PAL, so I would like to convert it to NTSC, but to convert it to NTSC I need NTSC, PPU, CPU and PPU, and obviously Crystal. And yeah, um, I will get those from this Famicom, original Japanese Famicom board. I have lots of those and I've no use for them. So I thought I'll take this CPU and PPU from here, maybe while this other some memory. So there's a lot of work, as you can see. So I thought I'll do a quick video on desoldering techniques. There's not much about soldering through hole components. I'll show you, but that's very basic stuff. Desoldering can be tricky in some cases, so I thought I'll show you how to do this based on this example. There's quite a few components that I need to desolder, and yeah, I think that'll be a good video to kind of see what it takes to desolder these kind of chips. So yeah, but let's start with my tools. So for the through-hole desoldering, I'm using this cheap Pros Kit desoldering station. So this is essentially a handle again with two. One is the this one I think is the air, where it gets the air, and this one is the power. This is not the best tool for it, but again I'm not doing too much through-hole desoldering. Hako would be probably much better choice. It's kind of all-in-one desoldering gun, and it's a lot better. It's heavier. This one is light, so the advantage to this is that it's very light and yeah, handy. Hako is heavier and bigger, but this one has unfortunately a design flaw. By the way, there's many, at least a few brands of these. They're all the same, different colors, different branding, but they are all the same. So handle and the station, that's hidden beside my desk there, so I won't be showing that. But yeah, the flaw with this is that this thing tends to clog with solder quite quickly and quite often. So you need to use this thing to kind of clean it quite often. If you don't do that, it will get clogged, and obviously this will become useless, and you'd have to remove. The solder is usually right here. I'll show you how I do that if it clogs. So I think that's the design flaw, where it kind of cools down. The solder cools down and stays right here in this hole essentially, and blocks the whole thing. But yeah, I mean, for me, that's enough. They're cheap, but if you have money, buy Hako. So that's one thing. Obviously, for SMD, the soldering or stuff like that, I use this AIXUN, what is it? ST862D. This is quite good. I've had it for years and works for me, works very well. Maybe I'll show you how to use it on you can use it obviously for SMD, and you can use it for through-hole as well. It's just yeah, I tend to, for through-hole components, at least those components that I want to salvage or reuse, I'll use this. So that's the soldering. Obviously, you can do it with, you can try and do it with just the soldering braid, but yeah, that's for cleaning holes, like the holes that are left behind. Yes, the soldering, the braid is probably the best, but for actual desoldering, yeah, not so much, I think. Now for this soldering, I have JBC kit, kind of dual, what it's called, dual mode station or whatever. So I have two soldering irons and one station. They are expensive, like €1,000+, but you can buy cheap AIXUN, whatever it's called. I'll put the link in the description. You can buy them quite cheap. The advantage, well, I like JBC system because focus. These tips, JBC tips, are just excellent in my opinion. This, by the way, is, as you can see, AIXUN handle. My original JBC handle, unfortunately, I smashed the cable completely, and I just use this. I have the AIXUN, whatever you pronounce it, however you pronounce it, as a spare, just in case. They are cheap. I started with those, but then I've been using JBC for a few years. These tips are what makes JBC unique, in my opinion. By the way, they are expensive. Obviously, you can buy AIXUN or some other knockoff tips from Aliexpress, and if you're on budget, just buy them. They work. They're not as good as this, as original JBC, but they work. The handle works perfectly fine. I've never had any issues. Works. So this is T245, and that's what I recommend. You probably won't need anything else, to be honest. If you need to solder very small components, this is what I have, T210, and the tips here are much smaller, as you can see, and they don't provide too much power, so don't try to solder a big ground plane with this. But yeah, if you need to do macro soldering, this is good choice. Otherwise, again, if you have the kind of big one, so this one, T245, you can buy, I think there are on AliExpress, you can buy what they call it, micro soldering pen or something like that. So just there's USB on one side, and they accept these very small tiny tips, and I think you can use those. But yeah, for me, or I think the basic one is the T245. Just they are good. They are very good. So yeah, I mean, obviously I have a microscope. I bought it years ago on I think Aliexpress. I can't remember the name. It's quite good. Quite good. I think it has Sony whatever the sensor is. It's Sony. So it has a good quality picture, and fume extractor. Obviously, that's one thing that you really need. I actually, what I have is kind of DIY solution that I made from a big fan. The fan, what's it called? It's not the kind of usual fan that with blades. It's the one that looks like a snail or something. I can't remember the name. So it has quite a good power, and I've added some filters to it. But yeah, it's a DIY solution because they are expensive. So, and this one works very well for me. So with that being said, let's start working on it. I see, you can see there's a lot of dust. So first of all, before you start the soldering, what I tend to do is have a look and see if these pins are bent. As you can see, some of the pins here, I'm not actually sure if you can see this, but some of these pins are bent. So the best way to approach it is try and straighten them up if you can. If you can't, like this one for example, use your soldering iron, heat it up and straighten it up, because you will have problem removing the chip or whatever component you're soldering, like be it capacitor or resistor or whatever. Yeah, try to straighten it up. The other thing, add some fresh solder. At least that's what I do. Add some fresh solder to all this. So let's say we start with this one, right? This is what, CPU, PPU, can't remember. Let's start with this big chip here, right here. So first of all, what I do is I check. First of all, I will have to remove that. We'll do that in a minute. And then check the pins if they are all straight. This and this one is not. So we'll straighten it up. And that will do. Everything else seems to be this one. Actually, this is not that chip. This is this one. So this row and this row. This is okay, not too bad. This one needs straightening, definitely. And I'll have, no, it actually, yeah. So, okay, so again, add fresh solder, and then we'll use the soldering gun to desolder this one. There's third option as well. Let me just find it. The third option is low melt solder. So this stuff here. This works very well. So you just add low melt solder tool to these pins, and then it will essentially fall out. The problem with this is that it will leave a mess. So you will have to clean it up, and this is probably not the best idea. Yeah, if you want to reuse a chip, this is probably not the best idea. If you don't want to reuse anything, then yes, just go ahead and use that. Remove the chip, and then use the wick to remove that remains from the holes. But for kind of normally, I wouldn't use that. Okay, so my fume extractor is on. As you can see, this is my DIY thingy. I have my soldering iron ready, but let's start with this. Actually, this is the kind of ribbon cable right there. It's kind of in the way because this is hanging off the board. So let's remove that. This will be easy because again we can heat up this side and then just pull every single wire separately. So, but again, we'll start with adding some fresh solder. I'll go closer to the fume extractor. So as you can see, the fume extractor works very well. I'm very happy with it. Not worried about bridges or anything like that here, because again, I'm just removing this stuff. So now that I have a fresh solder, I'll just grab one side. I need to work on the lighting, I think. Just give me 1 sec, I'll try and fix it so that maybe you can see slightly better. Yeah, I'm afraid that's the best I can do. So, so let's start. Just heat up and pull, heat up and pull. This is actually not coming out that easily. Let's start on this side. Almost there. Done. So this is now done. So I can get rid of this part because I don't need it. So we'll focus on this chip here, and this chip is this row and this row of pins. So again, fresh solder. By the way, leaded solder. Don't use that unleaded solder if you can. So we're adding fresh solder to all these pins, and again, yeah, the light is not great, but by the way, when you're adding the solder, fresh solder, just try and move the pins, so push on them slightly, so that the solder goes to the other side. Just like that. So as you can see, it's quite a lot of work, but that's that's what you need to do. I'm not sure, it will probably be easier to use hot air, but in this case, because I don't care about the board, I'd be just worried about, because this is just I think 2-layer board, so yeah, it would be quite a lot of heat. I will try that with maybe with next one, if it works at all. Hot air is very good when you have sockets to remove. You remove a chip and there's no risk of overheating that chip, so then you can remove that. You can remove the socket. Also, low melt solder for sockets also works well, because again, you most likely won't be reusing that socket. By the way, when you're desoldering chips, there's always a risk that it will overheat, that the heat will kill the chip. But yeah, in this case, I have no choice. Chip is it's not hot, but it's warm, definitely. So that's done. We have fresh solder on every single leg, and I just noticed that this one needs to be straightened, and it's actually covered with solder, so I need to heat it up first and try and straighten it up a little bit, at least, just like that. There, that should do it. So now comes this thing. These also have different sizes, so the holes, not sure if it will focus or not, but the holes here have different sizes, so make sure the one that you choose is sufficient. So this one seems to be okay, so there's a little bit of space. Make sure you can, when you put the leg in or the pin in, that you can do like this circular move, because that's what we'll be doing. So let me explain. I've seen a lot of people just putting this against the board and pushing to the board and then sucking the solder. That's big mistake. Two reasons. One, if you push, there is a risk you will destroy the pad. So don't do that. Don't push. Just barely touch, as you can see here. Like now I'm pushing. Right now I just barely touch, and then when it's on, barely touch it, wait for maybe a second, and start this kind of circular move so that you can feel the pin is moving. Do it for maybe 1-2 seconds, and then, still doing that circular motion, press the button. That way you'll make sure that most of the solder should come out from the hole. Again, if you just push it and do that, there's a chance that that pin is still attached to one of the sides, and it will just stay there, and the solder will stay there. And again, but the biggest risk is that you destroy the pad. Don't push. It doesn't really help at all whether you push it or not. It will heat up. Just do start moving the tip. So I'll turn it on, power it on, and we'll start doing it. So again, while this is heating up, again, just to make sure you understand, you need to clean this very often. Make sure before you start that it's clean. Make sure it's clean when you actually finish, and every few kind of pins that you desolder, just do this, and you should be good. If it locks, there is a solution, and I'll show you. It's just you need to disassemble all the thing, remove that, and then hit this part in here with this soldering iron and try and push this at the same time. So I think it's the, by the way, I'm using about 350 Celsius. Again, this is not precise. JBC is precise, is calibrated. This is different. You can't really tell, but you'll see. If the if the solder melts, then it's okay. So again, barely touch it and start moving around. Same thing, barely touch it. Again, I'm pretty much not touching the pad at all. It's just barely touching it. And again, don't suck immediately. Just give it some time to actually melt. Okay, let's see. Okay, we're good. Let's continue. You see, it was very close to be clogged again, but it's okay now. So let's continue. Okay, so that's done. I think I desoldered all of this. Yep. Now, this is not all. Let me just turn off my equipment for now because I won't need a fume extractor or the desoldering gun, and we'll go through what's next. So now that this is desoldered, or it looks like it's desoldered, doesn't mean that you can just pull the chip, because again, you will probably destroy some of these pads. You can try push it gently, but as you can see, I'm gently pushing, but it's not. Some of those, like this side, I think it's okay. This side is not. So something is still soldered here, and the way to check it is just to check these pins one by one. Maybe I'll take my microscope so that you can see it better. So give me 1 second. We'll go under the microscope. Okay, so hopefully you can see this. And where are we? So this is where we've been desoldering. This is the top row, this one here, and this is the bottom row. So what I do, normally you can do it without microscope, but you wouldn't be able to see it under the camera. So what I do, I just go ahead and try and push the pin around. So as you can see, this is stuck. Actually, I think it's loose at the moment, right now. This one, you see, they are kind of slightly attached to the, but if you move them, they move freely. So this one is moving. Let me move it to the side so that I can see it better. This one's okay. This one's okay. Try not to bend the legs. I did it here, but I can straighten it up. Just worried about this one. I think this one is moving. There's some solder left here, but maybe it will be okay. If not, we'll need to try and desolder it, but I think it's moving. So this one's okay. This one's okay. This one's okay. Just go and check them one by one. If any of this is not moving freely, like you can push gently and it'll kind of pop, but if you see a lot of solder, or if you see that it's not really moving, it doesn't want to move at all, then yeah, just apply fresh solder and do the same, repeat the exercise. So just desolder it again. I think this one is problematic. No, this one's good. Okay, so that side is okay. Let's check the other side. Right here. This one's moving. I'll flip it over to this side. So let's start again. So this is the other side. So these are moving. As you can see, these are already kind of detached in the middle of the. And that's that's when this circular move helped, because if you start moving it, this pin will move, and the solder, it will suck the solder from pretty much everywhere. So I think we're all good. And again, as I said, you don't need microscope to do that, but on the camera it's hard to show, at least on my equipment. Everything seems to be fine, so what you do, you just gently try and push gently. And as you can see, all these pins are moving and the chip is actually moving up. So what I do next is I do, well, either have some professional tool for chip removal, or just grab a screwdriver and very gently pull it up. And again, try not to bend too many legs, because if you're using that chip as I do, as you can see, this is bent, I'll have to straighten them up. So there's not much solder on this, so I won't be cleaning. This is just dirt stuff. But if you have a lot of solder left, you just grab, let me show you that under the microscope as well. I have this silicone, and I mean true silicone pads, not Chinese type of silicone. What I do, I'll grab some wick, not this one, yeah, wide one. I don't have wide one. What I do, I put the wick right there. I'll put the chip on top of it, just like that. And again, it's focusing on the like that. And then grab a soldering iron and just push it with soldering iron, and the solder will kind of go to the wick. You can also add some flux. It'll help, but that's how I do it. Again, make sure that you do it on a silicone pad, because that won't melt. This doesn't need really cleaning. It looks pretty good. Obviously, well, it needs to be cleaned from the dust, but I need to straighten a few legs, and it should be good. So this is done. Now I'll move back to the camera view, so give me 1 second. Okay, so it's all done. This is the pad. Again, this is actual silicone, so it won't melt and you know, do some stuff. So this is removed. Again, that's how I remove the chips that I want to reuse. Now the chips are fairly easy, because again, when they are in the socket, as you saw under the microscope, there is space left, so they don't block the entire hole. So if you put them like that, there's, as you can see here, they are kind of square or flat, and they don't block the entire hole. Now, when you have a socket, most sockets are plastic, obviously, and they sit on top of the board directly, and that plastic is in most cases wide enough to cover entire hole. And if the entire hole is covered, then obviously there's no way a kind of fresh air can get through. So if you try to desolder it, there's no, this is obviously trying to pull the air along with the solder, but if it's blocked on the other side, then it's virtually impossible. So quite often when you're trying to remove sockets, it's not as easy as with the chips, because the solder doesn't really want to go away. So so there's a few options when you have sockets. Again, this doesn't have any sockets, so I can't tell you. I can't show you that, but I guess this would be the problem with. No, there is a space. As you can see, there is some space in between. So removing this would be fairly easy. This cartridge slot, because there's space right there, as you can see, and you can even see the pins there. so the air has kind of can flow there. But sockets are flush on the board, and it causes problems. So there's two options. One, you can obviously cut the socket in half. That makes it easier because you only have one side and the other side, so you can take care of this kind of separately. You can heat it up with a heat gun or with this AIXUN hot air station, and they will melt. And when they are kind of melting, when they are soft, you can remove that plastic black, usually black part side, and then you have individual pins which you can just remove as with a soldering iron. So heat it up and on one side and pull it out. That's one option. Another option, again, flip it, heat it up from this side like that, right, and then pull it out. There's no risk of damaging the chip because, well, obviously you should remove the chip first, so it should come off fairly easily. Other than that, again, cut it in half and use low melt solder, because again, you won't most likely be reusing that socket if you're removing it, and there's no really worry. You shouldn't be worried about the mess that low melt solder leaves. I think that's all for today. Maybe I'll do, at some point, maybe I'll do the SMD type of soldering, desoldering. We'll see. That's all for today. Thank you.